I'm going to go ahead and say that I think this gospel passage is one that maybe it's very easy for us to move into, or is it just me? This resurrection story where Jesus desires so strongly that we receive his peace, right? It's the first thing that he says, peace be with you. And they get all excited, but he repeats it, peace be with you. And then the next week when Thomas is finally with them, he says it again. I think it's safe to say the Lord's desire is that we receive the peace he wants us to have. Those early disciples, it was hard for them to receive because they were filled with fear. So our reflection question this weekend, I think, is really appropriate for us to get in touch with what are those fears that we cling to that keeps us from receiving that peace. Maybe that's something that we can continue to reflect on throughout this week. On Friday, I drove up to Yankton, South Dakota, to be present at my first cousin, Ken's, funeral. I have a big family. I think I counted up one time I have 75 first cousins. That's without spouses, okay? Yeah, there's a lot of us, okay? I was the youngest on my mom's side, so my cousin Ken was a part of my mom's relation. My mom and his mom were sisters. My mom was the youngest of 12, and then I was the youngest in our family, and it so happened that nobody else wanted any kids after I came along. So I'm the end of the line. I think everybody kind of felt like, okay, that's enough. Let's just all call it good there. Until my first cousins started having kids of their own. And then they got a little carried away themselves. For example, I've got a first cousin that had 14 kids. Got another first cousin that had 13 kids. Yeah, so it gets even uglier, okay? But it was really a blessing to be able to be gathered with family and to celebrate Ken's life. Ken suffered from cancer for a few years. This last January, he called me up, and I think it's safe to say what I was hearing in his voice was fear, because he knew that the end was getting close. And so I encouraged Ken to see this time as a gift. Not everybody knows that the end is near, right? Some people it's just over in an instant. He had a time to prepare, and I suggested to him that you see this time as preparation for the greatest trip you'll ever take. Our families went on vacations together when I was growing up. I remember he was a lumberjack, and that was okay. Out by somebody got it. He was cutting trees, serving as a lumberjack out by Sundance, Wyoming, when I was a little boy. He was 13 years older than me. So I remember we went out to visit him, and we picked him up, and he had like 2 days off. So we proceeded to go to Yellowstone, which is a long ways away, look at things, jump back in the car, and drive back. We had other great trips that we took together. And I encouraged Ken to see what the opportunity that he had is preparing for the greatest trip he is ever going to take. And so I suggested to him also that he get a spiritual director. to call out to the priest in his parish there and see if he'd be willing to journey with him. If not, feel free to give me a call back. I would be honored to journey with you. So never really heard what came of that until Friday morning at the funeral. The priest in his homily said this is the first time in his priesthood that he had somebody call him and say, I need help preparing for what is coming. Death is imminent. And so what really amazed me is that I had a relative that actually listened to me. I think I have a lot of relatives out there watching today, so. He took advantage of the invitation, and he ended up setting a beautiful example as he prepared for that trip. And he gave that example to his immediate family, his wife and his 3 daughters, to his brothers and sisters. There were 9 of them, and to their kids, and to his friends and family that got to experience him preparing for this trip. He didn't allow fear to control his response. It was easy for me to suggest that to him, because quite honestly, I don't know how I myself would respond. I hope and pray I will follow my own words, but I don't know. It's the unknown for all of us, right? I think that's what he was afraid of. After all, none of us have ever experienced our own death, right? There's this sliver of people that have a near-death experience and come back and share the beautiful news. That's some of the things what we can learn about and why we can be so excited. But the other reason why we can have hope in that prospect of moving on, of taking that trip to the other side, is what we hear in Scripture and what our faith tells us. That where we are going is much better than where we are. Those of us that have that faith have that to look forward to and that to embrace. We can have that peace, but again, it's the unknown that we tend to fear. I guess a lot of us have been experiencing that this last year, right? COVID-19. What is that? We were asking ourselves a year ago. What does this mean for us? What is this going to do to our economy? What is this going to do to my job? What is this going to do to my food insecurity? What is this going to... The unknown. That list was really long. And there's still some unknowns, right? How long is the vaccination going to last? How long do the antibodies stay in our body? We don't know for sure yet, do we? There's still a lot of unknown. But in the midst of all of the unknowns, let us hear Jesus coming beyond the locked doors of our lives into our hearts with those words, "Peace be with you." Let us allow ourselves to receive that peace, to have that faith that brings comfort in any situation we face ourselves with. Whether it's the demise of a loved one, whether it's our own approaching transition or trip, whether it's this pandemic, whatever it is in our lives, let us invite the Lord to bring His peace. And let us receive it. Then let's also recognize what He gave to His disciples also. That commissioning, right? We heard it again today. As the Father has sent me, guess what? I'm sending you. Don't just hold on to that for yourself. Don't just hold tight to it. But once you've received it, feel free to share it abundantly.